Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. And I talked to our friends at Wisconsin. I think they're having some technical issues right now, so hopefully they'll get connected in throughout the broadcast, and I'll work the back channel communication with them while we're going throughout the program. But let me first of all say good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. My name is Jerry. I oversee all the youth and educational programs here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. And we're really excited to connect with you guys here today for this is our first of the year, Heart of the Hall of Famer series. We got probably about 25 of these we're going to be doing over the next 7 or 8 months. So we're really excited to be able to bring these opportunities to you. But the first thing that we always like to do as a museum is give everyone a clear understanding of exactly who it is and what it is that we do here. And our mission at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game. So the folks like Charlie Sanders and others, we want to honor those individuals. We want to preserve its history, the game's history. So we're a museum. We have museums function. We want to promote the values of the sport. We know that pro football's last couple weeks has been hit pretty hard with some things out there. So I'm sure maybe some of you guys will have some questions about those for Mr. Sanders. But we not only believe that there's for every I guess bonehead moment that's out there or incident, that there's 99 other guys doing great things in the communities across the country. But we also feel that this is the ultimate team sport. And if you think about life in general, and you think about football, we function as teams. We function as teams in the classrooms. We function as teams on the basketball court or the football field. We function as teams in the business world. We function as teams as a collection of educators at schools. We function as teams here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And we most certainly function as teams at our house, in our homes, with our families. So I don't think there's any sport that teaches things better than respect and responsibility and accountability and trustworthiness and just love and passion and all the things that go along with pro football. So we really feel strongly about promoting those values here, and this is what this Heart of the Hall of Famer series we try to do with that. So we want to honor the heroes, preserve the history, promote its values, and then we want to celebrate excellence everywhere. Anything that we do, we want to demonstrate that excellence, whether it's through a video conference broadcast or whether it's a group of 5 people, a family that came in here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We want to celebrate that excellence in everything that we do. So we're really excited to have you guys connect in here for the Heart of the Hall of Famer series. Really, the idea and premise behind this was exactly what we talked about already. Is that it was to convey exactly what it takes to get in the Hall of Fame beyond just the athletic ability. We know there's a number of folks that have outstanding skill and talent, but it took so much more than that to get enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It took character qualities like the 6 pillars that you guys are studying: the trustworthiness, the respect, the responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship, and so much more. So we are excited to give you the opportunity to ask one of the greatest football players, definitely one of the greatest tight ends, but one of the greatest football players ever. And to keep in mind for you guys, to keep things in perspective, since the NFL started in 1920, there have been over 23,000 players that have played in the National Football League. There are only 287 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So you get an idea of just how elite Mr. Sanders, when you guys are talking to him today, just how elite of an individual and an athlete, and really as a person of character that Mr. Sanders is. So what I'd like to do is just recognize the schools that are participating and then introduce Mr. Sanders, let him share some opening remarks, whether it's 30 seconds or 5 minutes, whatever you have on your heart, Mr. Sanders, that you want to share with these young people today. And then we're just going to go to Q&A. And it looks like if Wisconsin doesn't show up, that means more power to Dearborn, the host school, and Carson, because that means you get more questions and more individual attention with Mr. Sanders. So definitely a benefit for you guys. So first of all, this doesn't happen without a team. We have an awesome team here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, all the folks that help make this possible. First and foremost, our partners on this, Extreme Networks. Thank you very much. They're the ones arranging host sites for us all across the country with our Hall of Famers. So we appreciate all your work for that, Extreme Networks, and especially Gene Mickelson there, and who is in the area, in Dearborn, and actually I think she's off camera. Actually, she made the trip. She lives in Minnesota, but she made the trip there to Dearborn to make this trip, to make this connection possible. We have to thank our friends at Dearborn Public Schools. First of all, the administration, especially Dearborn Heights, the school that is actually hosting. Dan Patterson, thank you, the IT director for the district. Thank you for working with me throughout this whole time. It doesn't happen without you doing that. So thank you, Dan Patterson, for doing that. We have to thank the teachers for preparing the kids, and then obviously we got to thank the students. And right now, what I would like to do is I think everybody's got their microphones muted. So I'm going to mute Charlie's microphone for just a second here. And so that means all the students in the background, make sure you're being quiet now because we're going to go live with Charlie's microphone. But what I'd like to do with those students that are in the background of Charlie is I'd like the students that are tuned in to hear you guys make a little noise. So when I call upon you, go ahead and give a shout out for your school. Dearborn Heights campus, go ahead. All right. Thank you very much. And just a reminder, Dearborn, we're going to keep your microphone open the whole time now from here on out. So in the background, we need you to be silent, and you guys have been, so that's great. But just as a reminder for that. And then we're just going to go to Pensacola. I think I pronounced that correctly. Is that, you'll correct me if not? Carson School, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Oh, well, thank you for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it, Nancy, there for making all the arrangements that you did. But let me get done talking because you guys didn't come here to listen to me talk today. But let me go to the introduction of our featured speaker, and that's Pro Football Hall of Famer Mr. Charlie Sanders. Now, he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2000, and he became only the 7th tight end enshrined in NFL history at that time. He played his entire 10-year career with the Detroit Lions and recorded 336 career receptions for nearly 5,000 yards and 31 touchdowns. He's really considered one of the finest tight ends, obviously from the Lions, one of the finest tight ends of his generation. His 336 career receptions set a franchise record that would hold for 20 seasons until it was surpassed by Herman Moore in 1996. He led the Lions and was the co-leader in receptions 6 times. He garnered 30 or more receptions 7 times in addition to reaching 500 yards in 6 seasons. Now, some of you might look at that and say, man, 30 receptions, that doesn't sound like a lot compared to tight ends today. Number one, the game didn't throw as much as it does today, so just remember that. But number two, the tight end, especially in that era, was not really used as a weapon. It was used as more as just an extra blocker in many cases. So those numbers were astronomical at that time. Sanders was elected to 7 Pro Bowls, was a 2-time All-Pro, and was named the NFL's All-Decade. So the NFL recognized his skill and his talent and said, we're going to create a team for all 10 years in the 70s, and Charlie Sanders deserves a spot on that. He was drafted by the Lions in the 3rd round from the University of Minnesota in 1968. Sanders is the only rookie that season selected to play in the Pro Bowl and finished second to then teammate Earl McCullough for NFL Rookie of the Year honors. In his first season, he hauled in 40 passes for 533 yards and a touchdown. And perhaps the single greatest game of his career occurred in the season finale when he grabbed 10 receptions for 133 yards against the Washington Redskins. He proved during his career his extraordinary ability by combining great leaping ability, big hands, strength, speed, and elusiveness. Traits not common, as I already said, for tight ends that are in that era. Sanders was one of the first tight ends who brought experience in both college football and basketball, much like Tony Gonzalez that you guys see here and Antonio Gates that you see in the game today. As great of a player as he was, this is what I like to recognize about our players. As great of a player as he was on the field, he was even better, more spectacular, more extraordinary off the field, helping countless charitable organizations. Sanders, who is the Lions Assistant Director of Pro Personnel and has been affiliated with the Lions in various capacities for 40-plus years, has always been committed to assisting community efforts. While a player, Sanders annually supported March of Dimes and was a United Way spokesman for the team. Today, he continues to assist many charities, but has focused his efforts on 2 that are particularly close to his heart, the Family to Family Foundation of Michigan and the Charlie Sanders Scholarship Foundation. So again, as we said, you hear about the bad things in the news that are going on with some of the different NFL players. Just know that there are current players and alumni and Hall of Famers that are just doing awesome, awesome things all across the country. The Charlie Sanders Scholarship Foundation began in 2007 after a successful fundraiser with the Rochester Community House. The foundation annually will fund at least 2 college scholarships for high school students in Oakland County. In time, Sanders hopes to expand the scholarship to all of Michigan as well as North Carolina, which is his home state. So before we ask Mr. Sanders to share his opening remarks, what I would like to do is quickly show you guys a quick highlight film of Mr. Sanders.
Charlie Sanders played football and basketball at the University of Minnesota. As a member of the Detroit Lions, he took lessons he learned from both sports to become one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history. At 6'4" and 230 pounds, Charlie Sanders used his strength, speed, and leaping ability to make an immediate impact. In an era where tight ends were primarily blockers, number 88 became a bona fide weapon for Detroit. After catching 40 passes as a rookie, Sanders was selected to the first of his 7 Pro Bowls. A fan favorite in the Motor City, Charlie Sanders became the 7th tight end inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2007.
All right, our friends in New Jersey can unmute, as well as the folks that are behind Mr. Sanders or in front of Mr. Sanders today. Please join me and give him a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Charlie Sanders. And Mr. Sanders, go ahead. The microphone is yours, sir, with your opening remarks.
All right, fantastic. First of all, I think you spent too much time on me. This is all about what the purpose of the Hall of Fame has come together to present to these young student athletes. And it's very humbling to hear some of the remarks that were made. But I want to assure all the listening audience, especially the student athletes here at Dearborn Heights, very close to my place of employment, that everybody has a story. You know, and it's amazing when you sit and listen to all that you read about the things that I may have accomplished during my career. I assure each and every one of you that growing up at an age where football was not really relevant in my life. Matter of fact, sports and athletics were not relevant in my life. As I said before, everybody has a story. It's almost amazing when you sit back and look at where I am today and peek back many, many years ago when I was at your age. I lost a mother at age 2 and was basically raised by aunts and uncles along with my 2 brothers. And I tell people that the Hall of Fame and all that lies ahead of us is almost written. At least I feel that way about me. I was born on a farm, no television. Your entertainment was radio, basically. And other than that, it was work. And I think that was the basic basis under which my character started to evolve. Everything was centered around work, earning what you got in life and appreciating everything that you did get. So we know we're going to talk about all the pillars that are tied into what makes an individual. One of the things that I always valued was the self-satisfaction of knowing that I worked hard and I contribute each and every day. And that was going to lead me to developing the character that I needed later on in life. As I said before, we all have a story. And even though you're at the age you're at right now, your story may not have been written, but I guarantee you one day you'll look back and say, this is where I made my turn in life, or this is where I decided I was going to do or commit myself to become whatever that may be. And if there's one thing that I really would like for each and every one of you to put in your mind, even at this age, is that we all have the ability to evaluate where we are at any given time. And I tell my kids, along with every other kid that I have the opportunity to speak to, that you should learn to spend some time with yourself. Each and every individual out there has the ability to find out who they really are. You know who you are. It's hard for me to sit here and try to figure you out. But at the end of every day, you ask yourself a simple question. And that question should be, what did I do today to make myself a better person? And then the process, what did I do to make the world a better place? And if you can honestly look at that and answer that, and if your answer is not a positive one, then I always tell people, ask the good Lord to give you a chance to start all over again the next day. So each and every day is a building process in your life, and it's up to you to evaluate each and everything you do to contribute toward you being the best person you can possibly be.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sanders. And I encourage students, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, not only the students, but the teachers that are tuned in there and any adult that is listening in this program. I mean, that's advice that we can all take back into our lives. I mean, imagine waking up in the morning and just saying to yourself, you know, what can I do today that's going to make the world a better place? And then at the end of the day, asking yourself, did I do anything to make the world a better place? I mean, that's something that we can all dwell on and think about and aim to do and inspire to do. So the learning doesn't stop with just being in school. So those of us that are tuning in, I take notes throughout these because there are definitely a lot of things that I can apply to my life. So what we're going to do is I just found out from Wisconsin just emailed me and said they're not going to be able to connect in. So looks like New Jersey and the folks there, you guys got for the next 40 minutes, it looks like, you got Mr. Sanders to yourself. So that is awesome because you guys will have the opportunity to ask all kinds of different questions of him. But I encourage you to ask those challenging questions, those questions that you know, about his character, about times that he's overcome obstacles in his life. And he's already shared some of those just in his opening remarks, some of those early obstacles that he faced in his life. So again, I'm just going to shut up here and be a voice in the background. I'll chime in from time to time. We're going to start with the folks there at Troy. If you can make sure to project your question loudly or clearly, or even walk up next to Mr. Sanders and ask the question right next to him. And then we'll go back and forth between Troy and New Jersey for the next 40 minutes. So go ahead, student there, Troy, who's got the first question to start off the program.
That's us, guys. We're Troy. We're Troy.
I'm sorry. Dearborn. I'm sorry. I keep calling you Troy. I'm calling you by your IT director's first name. Dearborn Heights campus. I'm sorry.
First question right there. Just talk loud.
How would you feel if the Lions signed Ray Rice?
How would I feel if the Lions signed Ray Rice?
Wow, great. What a question to start the program off.
You know what? As a football player, as a person, you know, I know how fortunate I was to get where I am. And I do know that this world is a forgiving world. And I don't understand, and I don't think anyone understands other than Ray, exactly what Ray went through or exactly what happened. I would be excited because, number one, I feel deep down inside he's a good person. Number two, I know he's a good football player.
Yeah,
and number three, I love the Lions. So we can take it from there.
Good answer.
All right, let's go ahead and go to, that's it. Boy, we started you right under the fire there, Charlie. We're starting full go, 0 to 60, right off the get. So thank you. Great question to start off with, and I'm sure we can get back into more of those questions as well too. But let's go to Carson now.
Can Carson take a pass to the next one? We're just printing out our questions now.
Sure. Go ahead and we'll go back to Dearborn. I'm sorry, Troy, I just made you a school, by the way, so go ahead, Dearborn.
Who was your favorite childhood athlete?
Who's my favorite childhood athlete? You know, it's really funny. I made mention in my opening remarks that growing up, we didn't have a television. I think I was in maybe the 9th grade before we got our first television. And because of that, there weren't any teams that we every Sunday sat down in front of the television and watched, whether it be football, basketball, or baseball. One of the first teams that I ever watched on television was Washington Redskins. And as I said before, the chores and the responsibility of growing up on the farm took priority over entertainment by way of television and radio. So I think my first athlete that I idolized or wanted to be like was a kid that I played high school ball with, and that was a guy named Lou Hudson because I just thought he was a fantastic ball player at a point in time when I was just learning about sports and athletics. So unlike you all, I don't have the role models that was placed in front of me But I will say this, if and when that challenge or that opportunity presents itself to you, make sure that you choose a role model that's just not an athlete, but is a good person. And you'll learn a lot more from them than other than just their athletic skills.
And that's what I was going to ask. I was going to follow up on that, Charlie. Thinking about that, a lot of youth idolize these professional athletes or actors, actresses, or musicians, or whoever it might be. What's your thoughts? Do you think those folks should be role models to our youth, or do you think it should be someone closer to home for the youth so they can see the total picture of that person?
Well, it's not so much someone closer to home. It's who and what that person represents. I mean, I have 9 kids of my own, so I have the peer pressure issue also. I mean, I've had sons that sit and watch the athletes with the 10, 15,000 square foot home and 6 and 8 cars in the garage. And my basic question to him was, are you watching him because of what he has, or are you watching him because of what he can teach you as a human being? And he was very honest. He says, I like what he has. And I think it gives the young people the wrong impression of what sports is all about. And more importantly, it gives them the wrong impression about what life is all about, because life is not about the possessions that a person strives to get, nor the possessions that he ends up with. Life is a little more than that. So I think it gives the young adults the wrong incentive to get involved in sports and athletics. Sports and athletics is a lot more than the financial gains, as I think a lot of us have realized after we got outside of football, after we got outside of basketball, or whatever that sport may be. It was what we learned during the course of the challenges that of competing that stuck with us more so than the dollars.
And I love what you said. Are you watching him because of what he has or because of what he does in the world? And I think that's, as a father of a 3 and a 6-year-old, I'm probably going to encounter that situation sometime in my life. So that's something that I think I might borrow from you, Mr. Sanders. So if you don't mind. So I think our folks in New Jersey look like they're ready. They have their hands up. They got the questions printed out. Go ahead and unmute there and fire away if you want to fire away a couple questions.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you follow character traits when you were younger?
Well, you know what? It's outstanding when I sit here today and I see that the character traits are being taught. The educational system, as well as everything else in life, has pretty much come a long way from 50 years ago, so to speak. And so they may have been taught to me, but not in the way that they're being taught today. I think character was something that you developed as you grew older. It wasn't something that had to be emphasized from such a young age. And I think it's important that you do that today because of all the peer pressure and all the different ways that the young student athletes can be misled. 50 years ago, there were, I won't say less opportunities to lead a person astray, but I would say that today you're exposed to a lot more different ways to tear down character than I was 50 years ago. So my character traits were based on my parents. They were based on my school, and that was all we had. You had your parents and you had your education. What you didn't get at home, you got in school. And the one thing that I do respect about that stage in my life is that the parents and the teachers were all on the same page. I think that the society has kind of messed with the system so much that it hasn't really turned out to be as productive as it really should be in terms of the betterment of our student athletes.
Great question there, Carson. Let's go ahead Carson, with another one if you have another one. Go ahead and unmute there and do 2, since we let our friends at Dearborn do 2.
At what age did you start living by these rules?
Well, I think I started living by the rules at the age when my dad decided you either live by them or there was a price you were going to have to pay. It was a little easier to discipline us back then than it is today. As I said before, you know, your parents were the ones you were around more than your friends. And so the incentive under which you lived in your house in which you grew up, it was dictated by your parents. And that, to me, emphasizes the one pillow, if you say that, of the six that you're studying, that I think is probably the most important to me, and that of respect. And that has to start from within before it can be something outside of yourself. So once you develop that respect for yourself, it's easier now to start figuring out how you can respect other people. So more than anything else, we had respect for our parents. We had respect for one another. And so at what age? I think it was a very, very young age, because that was what was taught in the family.
And Mr. Sanders, you know, we talked about, you know, at a young age as well, but, you know, as you went through high school and especially college at the University of Minnesota, you know, part of college, I was just talking to a group of college students yesterday at my alma mater, University of Mountain Union, and part of college is not only educating yourself, but the maturity process that you go through as well. What did you learn from your experiences in college at that age of 18 to 22 that can be full of a lot of temptation?
Well, you know what? I have this saying that life is a process. You know, the difference between, you know, the time that you're born and the time that you die is all a process that we have to go through. And it's a learning process. And unless you're aware of exactly what you're doing each and every day and analyzing whether it's a good or a bad process that you went through that particular day, you're never going to grow as an individual. 18, 19 years old, you think in college you have all the answers, but I'm sure I was no different than anyone else. That as I got older, I learned the value of not only the time that I had spent in life, but the time that I had left in life, and that every day presented an opportunity to grow. So it's a learning process. Life is a challenge, and I learned at a young age that as much as I love a challenge, that I also give that challenges due respect, because challenges have been around a lot longer than accomplishments.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead, Dearborn, if you got a question, go ahead there.
Speak up.
Who do you think is the greatest quarterback of all time?
Who do I think is the greatest quarterback of all time? Oh,
Montana.
you know what? I have to. I'm a Peyton Manning fan. I'm going to say Peyton.
Oh, man. Get out of here.
Sorry.
And if I can follow up on that, Charlie, you know, out of the players that you see out there today, since you said Peyton Manning, and you know, you work with guys that these kids will know, guys like Megatron, you know, Calvin Johnson, guys like Matthew Stafford, guys like Peyton Manning and others. Who do you think exemplifies, because you've seen them both on the field, but you've seen them carry themselves off the field? Who do you think exemplifies what you say, I don't want to say the best character qualities, but who do you think exemplifies what we're trying to talk about here today?
Well, you know what? It's so many of them. You know, in my years of being around the game, I've had an opportunity to play with a lot of football players, and through my involvement after football with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you get an opportunity to rub shoulders and associate with guys that you didn't get the opportunity to play for. You'd be surprised how many athletes that are out there that through football or through sports have really developed a keen sense of building character. And more so than just them building it, I think that the most important thing to them is to go out and show and teach others about the importance of building character. To pick a one guy, I really couldn't do it. I mean, I can think of guys on this team. You mentioned Megatron. He's a true athlete in all senses of playing the game, but he's just a tremendous human being also. You can go all the way back to a guy like Lenny Moore, that I watched play, and to be around him at the Hall of Fame in Canton, and just to listen to him talk about life and about football, you know that he's a true individual with a good heart. So football, if I must say, is probably the one sport that probably touches athletes in such a way that they humble themselves, and that was the greatest experience that I had being inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's a very humbling experience, and just made you realize that you didn't get there alone, and there were a lot of blessings and good people that were placed in your life in order for you to get to where you were.
Thank you very much. And Troy, just so you know, Troy, not as in Dearborn School, but Troy as in the IT director, we're getting a little bit of, if anybody's moving by that microphone, I'm getting a little bit more of a, it's almost like a air that's passing by. So just if anyone's around or moving, just make sure to keep that in mind as you're going throughout. But let's go to actually let's go to another question from Dearborn. Then we'll go back to our friends in New Jersey.
For your last game, you played. Which team did you guys verse, and was it a win or a loss?
Redskins.
Well, my last game as a player, that was 40 years ago. I can't remember 40 days. I you know what? I don't really know. I'd like to think it was a win. The last game I played in may not have been the last game of the year we won. That was New Orleans. That was the last game I played in before I got injured and retired. That was a lot of years ago, 1976.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go back to New Jersey. New Jersey, if you got a couple prepared questions there. I see some excited students to ask some questions.
Was it difficult or easy to follow the pillars of character when you were playing football?
Oh, boy, the 6 pillars of character when I was playing football, it was probably very, very difficult because, you know, as I said before, everybody has a story in life, and football can be just as productive as it can be negative from an individual standpoint. Depends on how you look at it. Whether you want to consider it a blessing or whether you want to consider it something self-made by you. It was hard to remain humble in a game like football because there's so much glamour and excitement involved in the game. It was hard to concentrate on exactly who you were and the blessings that you had been granted in order to get to the point where you could be productive as a football player. So it was very difficult to keep your mind focused on just how blessed you really were, and try not to take credit for all the successes that you got in the game. But as I said before, once you got outside of the game, you realized how blessed you had to have been and how many people played a part in your success, because you had a chance to sit back and step back and look at the game for what it really is. It's a challenging game. It's a physical game. It's a mental game. And it's a game that can mislead you if you allow it to be. So it took me a few years after I got out of football to really put all of these character factors together and realize really how blessed I was.
And then in your comments there, Charlie, I heard something that I think that really stands out is you talked about how many people were involved in helping you go along. And I think that's important for us to bring up because, you know, we think of, in many cases, peer pressure as a bad thing. You know, it can also be a very positive thing too. And the people that are surrounding you can also be of a benefit to you. And not only because they might see something in you that you don't, especially, you know, teachers and parents and things like that, but they just might, you know, they just care about you and want to see you succeed. So can you talk about some of those people? I know you talked about your parents and what advice you have for these young people about about listening to others, because it's you know, in sports, it's amazing to me that when it's in sports and, you know, you're a basketball player, let's say, and you're like, man, I'm really struggling with foul shots. You have no problem going to your coach to ask, Coach, I'm struggling with foul shooting. What do I need to do? Coach like, okay, we're going to work on this, work on your mechanics, whatnot. But in other areas of life, and especially in education, if we are struggling, we all of a sudden, oh, I can't ask that. I might look stupid, or I might look dumb, or I might, you know. Can you comment to that?
Well, you know what? I keep using the word humble, and it's understandable that everybody thinks they have a direction already set aside for who they are and the direction they want to go. And it's very difficult for us as human beings to listen to other people's opinions about us. But the thing we fail to realize is usually those other people are wiser because they've been around longer. And especially if you're talking about your parents and people that you know care about you, they have a tendency, because of what they've seen and experienced, to sometimes know a little more about the direction you should be going than you do. And it's really funny because sports was not really a part of my life. As I said before, all we did was take care of chores on the farm. And my dad went to the Army when I was at a young age. And afterwards, he decided to get his degree in engineering. And once he got that degree, he moved us from the farm, which did not expose us to a lot, either educationally, and moved to Greensboro, where he became professor of engineering. And that was my exposure into sports and athletics. I had never picked up a football or hit a baseball or shot a basketball prior to moving to what I call the big city. And really learned the game by standing over on the sideline, the game of basketball, by watching other people play it. One day I decided to go out there. Matter of fact, the first layup I made was at the wrong end of the court. That's how much I knew about the sport. But football didn't enter my life until the 10th grade. It was a time in high school where we weren't allowed to play high school football until 10th grade. And the only reason I really went out for football was because my junior high school coach asked me if I was going to try out for the football team. And, you know, me being this athlete that everyone thought I had potential of being a great basketball player, I simply told him yes. And he challenged me. He looked right in my eyes and said, I don't think you're tough enough. And that stuck with me the whole summer. And my 10th grade year, I went out for the football team. And you know what? That challenge stuck with me even till today. I'll never forget him looking me right in the eye and questioning my character. And I think that, more than anything else, remained with me up until this day. And so challenges are good, whether they're imposed upon you by someone else, or I like to think that you can impose them upon yourself. I think some of the greatest accomplishments in life are the challenges that you take upon yourself, and more importantly, the challenges that you defeat. So he, I think, was not being vindictive. I think he was seeing if I had the ability to challenge myself. I think that was probably, as I said before, his greatest coaching moment was when he challenged me to see what I was going to do.
Okay, let's go one more from New Jersey, and we'll go back to Dearborn for a few more. Go ahead, Carson.
Here it comes quickly.
Oh, sorry.
Hustle up, on the double. I'm just messing with you.
Have you ever helped someone else follow these rules?
Well, yeah, I try to help my kids follow them every day, but I have success sometimes, and sometimes I don't. You know, sometimes as a parent, we refer to our own children as house devils and street angels. You know, they listen to someone else before they listen to you. But I try to instill encouragement and try to give advice to any individual that's willing to listen. And I think that as you were told earlier when the show first started, that, you know, you're in a position where you can seek advice, but at the same time, you have to be able to take that advice and really think it out and see if you think it's advantageous for you. Question is, who gives you the advice? And only certain people you should be seeking advice from. Those are your parents and your educational leaders today. So I think that pretty much sums it up for me.
Thank you. Great question there, Carson. Let's go back to Dearborn Heights for a couple questions from you guys there with Charlie.
I want you to ask your character questions. So if you have a character question you'd like to ask Mr. Sanders, go ahead.
What were some of your struggles growing up?
Oh.
Can you repeat that, Charlie, just so we can hear it? So you can hear that.
What were some of my struggles growing up? You know, I look back at my life, as I said before, I lost my mother at a young age, and I think the most telling part about that is that I had so many positive people around me that, and you have to understand when I say this, it's this, I didn't have a mother, but I didn't know I didn't have a mother, if that makes sense to you. In my speeches, you heard me say that it takes a village to raise a kid. That's an old saying, and I think I had that village. I think that I had enough positive people around me that part of my life I never dwelled on, and I've always been that way. I've always been in a situation where I've had people and things around me that kept me focused on being the best person I could be, whether that be in sports or whether that be in any aspect of life. I tell people, no matter what it is you become, make sure you become the best person at that you possibly can be. And then only then can you call yourself a successful person.
Great question there, Dearborn. Let's go back to you guys again. Do you have another one there, Dearborn?
Go ahead.
How much pride do you have in being in the Hall of Fame?
How much pride do I have in being in the Hall of Fame?
Great question.
Yeah, you know what? I'm very, very proud of being there, but it's a very humbling experience. One of my examples was once I got inducted, they have this annual golf tournament in Washington. And it's a chance for about 40 or 50 of the Hall of Famers to get together. And we take this group picture, and I can recall standing next to, you young adults may not know who Sam Jones is of Meadowlark Lemon with the Globetrotters. I remember calling my daughter and saying, you know what, I'm standing next to Meadowlark Lemon, getting ready to take a picture. And she says, no, Dad, they're standing next to you. And that was very, very touching, and it made me realize what a humbling experience it was. I mean, every time you get around these guys in the hall, you ask yourself, you know, how did I get here? Because it's such a fantastic fraternity. And if you talk about brotherhood and understanding what each and every one of us went through to get into the hall, you can't help but to humble yourself. And if you can humble yourself, then you're blessed.
Great question. Great question. Let's go back to New Jersey. Carson? Got two more. Go ahead.
What in life has made you the most proud?
Good question.
That's a very, very, very good question. Wow. Wow. Well, there's a lot that I'm proud of. There's a lot that I'm thankful for. I think that the one thing was to overcome the obstacle of realizing that the world was not just about me. And again, you know, these are things that as you get older, you realize what's important and what's not really important. Sometimes you realize that you wish you had enough time to go back and change some things in your life. But I think after I got inducted in Pro Football Hall of Fame, my whole perspective on life changed. I can recall telling myself, if the good Lord is going to bless me like this, then what am I going to do with this blessing? So that, I think, was the one time that I made a commitment to take everything that I possibly had and to go out and try to give it back. So I'm proud of staying committed to that promise I made to myself.
And Mr. Sanders, can you talk about, I mean, the year you got enshrined is the year that you launched your foundation as well, the Charlie Sanders Foundation. I'm sure that was one of the things that you were, I'm going to be blessed. I'm going to go bless others with my blessing. Can you talk about that?
Well, you know what? The foundation, it's the Scholars Charlie Sanders Foundation, and we also have a Heart Save a Life. And I think that you talk about blessings as a result of being blessed. One of the things that we do is provide heart screening for young student athletes. And we have saved a lot of lives. And as a matter of fact, in the last 2 months, we just got this young lady a heart transplant as a result of that health screening. So there's nothing more gratifying than that. Because of all of this, I was able to touch somebody's life. So that makes me feel good.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Let's go, Carson, with another question.
Has there ever been a time when you did not follow these rules of character?
Well, sure. I was a kid. Learning these pillars of character is a process, as I said before. It's a process. And you have to keep trying. You have to keep trying to be the best person you possibly can be. And the only way you can do that is, as I said before, at the end of the day, ask yourself a simple question. What did I do? And you can take on this personal challenge yourself. You know what the 6 pillars of character are. Ask yourself at the end of the day, which one of these 6 pillars of character did I apply today? Or did I apply more than one? So that means that you can take this challenge on yourself, and it starts developing you as a human being. And pretty soon those 6 pillars of character become exactly who you are. And more importantly, it's who you work to become. So, I challenge you, before you go to bed tonight, ask yourself, what did I do today to contribute toward my character?
And that's a great challenge, and it's a challenge that we should all take, not just to the students, but to the adults that are listening as well. Let's go back to Dearborn. Got a couple questions there, Dearborn. Looks like we got about 10 minutes left.
Character? Okay, are any of your relatives following in your footsteps?
Well, any of my relatives follow me. So you mean my kids? Or?
Yeah, son.
Well, I have 9 kids. I had 3 boys. They all played football. One of my daughters was a professional fighter, is one of the students that I have been talking about. She's pretty good. She was 25-1-1. And I've had daughters that participate in sports and athletics, but none of them have gotten to the pro level. None of them yet have been inducted into a Hall of Fame.
What about college?
But I did have a son that went to Ohio State, graduated there. I have one that went to Saginaw Valley, played ball, graduated, getting his master's there, and I have one that's playing there now. So they're doing what they're supposed to do, just stay in school and get an education.
How are you paying for all of this?
How am I paying for it? I was going to get a collection.
That's a great question.
Those awards are staying in school and going to high school. See, you get your parents to pay for your education.
See, that's just a testament to why you guys need to get good grades, because my kids need to get good grades, because I can't afford to pay for college for 2 kids at that age. So, but especially by the time it's going to be, by the time you guys finish, get to college, it's going to be quite expensive. So it definitely benefits you to do your best in school and possibly get a scholarship. So Dearborn, if you have another question, go ahead.
Would I ever want to go back to the NFL? I never wanted to leave. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to play. I've had the opportunity to broadcast. I've had the opportunity to coach. Now I'm scouting. So in 46 years, I never really left the game. So I've been very fortunate from that standpoint. I'm still involved with it. So you might say football is going to always be a part of my life.
Thank you very much. Let's go back to New Jersey. Let's do we can do two more questions in New Jersey. Go back to Dearborn for two more and close out the program.
Okay, we have one question left. Do you want to
Okay, all right, that works. That works. We're right towards the end anyways.
At what point in time did you have to be honest?
Well, you know what? Now you want me to be honest? As I said before, we all have to deal with ourselves on a daily basis. And sometimes we kind of fudge things and make it fit what we want, how we want it to fit to make ourselves feel good. But deep down inside, you know, we know if we've been truthful about a situation or not. I think that's something that you have to search your soul for. I try to be as honest as I possibly can without letting the competitiveness seep into my daily activities. It all starts with being honest with yourself. And I think if you can do that, you can pretty much be honest with every other aspect of your life.
Well, Carson, thank you very much. I know you're done with questions there, but thank you for the wonderful questions here today. Let's go back to Dearborn for a couple questions to close out the program. We'll ask Mr. Sanders in for any closing remarks.
While you were in NFL, was there someone in the locker room that gave you advice?
While I was in the locker room, did I have someone to give me great advice?
Good question.
Yeah, very good question. You know, you come into the NFL as a rookie, you don't really know what to expect. We went through situations where, you know, people didn't have your best interest in mind because you were competing for their jobs. The only thing we could do was pay attention to what our coaches ask us to do and try to concentrate on that. You had a teammate, I had a teammate that came in with me, Greg Landry, and we kind of hung out together and kind of kept each other focused on what we had to do as rookies to make the ball club. You have to understand that the NFL, there's only so many jobs that are out there on that team, and everybody's competing for those jobs. So sometimes the people that were giving you advice didn't always have your best interest in mind. Because they were trying to get a job also. But once people realize you can contribute to the winning program, they were very apt to try to help you out. So I never had a problem with anyone giving me advice that wasn't going to be beneficial for me during my career.
And Dearborn, if you want to go with looks like a final question, then ask Mr. Sanders for his closing remarks.
Character question. Go ahead.
Okay. So, have you ever considered coaching for the Lions?
Have I ever? I coached. As I said before, I spent a lot of years with the Lions. I coached for 9 years. I was on Wayne Fonse's staff, so I was there from I think 1988 to 1996. So probably had more fun coaching than I did playing, to be honest with you. I think you muted us out.
Oh, sorry. I'm just sitting here talking with the mute button on. No, I think one thing that's important to bring up too is that the NFL is very big on on trying to shape these young men's lives, both from the team, from a player development side, something that you know very well with the Lions and across the NFL. And it's not just recent. The player development offices started back in the early '90s or mid '90s or whatever it was, to help players transition into the NFL. And then help players actually transition out of the NFL to be successful, to find jobs and things like that. Because the fact of the matter is the average NFL career is only 3.5 years. Can you speak to that a little bit about what maybe the Lions try to do and instill in their players beyond just being great athletes?
Well, you bring up a very good point, because everybody thinks that, guys get in this game and they play forever, and they don't. And as you mentioned, it's 3.5 years and is the average length of time. You read about the guy that plays for 10 years, but you don't read about the guy that played for 1 year. And there are more of those than the guys that play for 10 years. And one of the biggest problems I think the NFL had years ago was the fact that guys mentally get attached to this game. And you realize they go through high school, they go through college, and football becomes such a part of their lives, and then all of a sudden someone tells them they're not good enough anymore. And from a mental standpoint, it's very difficult for them to adjust and realize that just may be the truth, that they're not good enough to compete. Biggest problem that they have is to go in now and adjust to life. And I know after playing for 10 years, it was difficult for me to step outside of that world that I had been in for 15, 20 years, and to go back into what is called a normal or a regular way of living. And your life, your mind, your body goes through a process. You get accustomed to doing something each and every day of your life, and that's taken away from you. Not intentionally, you just can't produce anymore. And so the biggest problem that I think most athletes have is to go back and readjust to life. And one thing the NFL has done, they've done a great job of providing programs that will help athletes make that transition from football back into life. We were having a lot of problems years before with guys trying to readjust. So they realize that it's a big business, but you also have people involved in this business, and it's not just about football. So they've taken it upon themselves to do something that's good for the athletes after they're out of the game.
And Mr. Sanders, I mean, I've got about 8, 9 different notes down here from what you've said. Is there anything that either A, you would like to reiterate, or B, something that you didn't talk about that you'd like to share to close out the program?
Well, we're sitting here talking about football, and you mentioned it earlier. You've had 23,000 people play this game, and you only got 200 and some in the Hall of Fame, and less than 10% of those go on professional sports and be successful after the sport. Life is more than football. Life is more than sports. There's life after sports. And everyone can't be a professional athlete. Everyone can't be a football player. But everyone can be the best person they can possibly be. And the sooner you start zeroing in and focusing on being that person, the better off you're going to be. Everybody has something that they are chosen and have been chosen to do and be successful at. And it doesn't always center around sports and athletics. So if there's one thing I'd ask them, each and every one of you do, is that's just search your heart and work hard at being the best person you possibly be, and then everything else falls into place.
And students, if you can, or at least New Jersey, if you can unmute your microphone and join me in giving a warm round of applause and saying thank you to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Charlie Sanders.